Hello, and welcome back to Knits and Notions podcast with me, Kira. You may know me as @strangebun on Instagram, and I use they, them pronouns. I don't know what this was. I'm always hesitant to continue starting my podcast episodes with that intro because I'm like, okay, y'all know who I am by now, right? This is episode 10, by the way, which I just realized. Happy 10th episode, woohoo, to me. So yeah, after 10 episodes, I'm like, if you're watching this in, like, I guess maybe this could be your first episode. I don't know. Anyways, I'm going to keep doing it, but it feels redundant. Anyways. Welcome back, and welcome back to me, to this space. Some things might look a little bit different because I recently had to move this little calendar, which is a tea cloth calendar printed by Phoebe Wall, which is my favorite illustrator, back here because it used to be on the other side of this camera, which you can't see, because today I have made one of the biggest steps in my adulthood, which is I framed my diplomas from college. Let me know if you are the same type of person, but when I graduated undergrad and they sent me that piece of paper, all I felt was just like pissed off. I was like, oh my God, I spent all that money on this dumb piece of paper. I just like stuffed it in the envelope, like cardboard envelope thing it came in, and I literally shut it in my closet to the point when I got my diploma for my master's. I wasn't 100% sure I even knew where my undergrad diploma was because I was like, oh, I just remember I was so pissed off. My master's diploma, I felt less pissed off, but I was still just like, I'm still just angry at the state of higher education in the United States. So it was still just like, But my mom decided like to mail me two frames, like picture frames for my diplomas. And she was like, hey, you should frame them. And I was like, okay, I'll frame them. And this is my home office, which I split with my partner, who's on the other side of this camera that you can't see. And I framed my diplomas. And I didn't want them back here in the background of my knitting podcast because I was like, how embarrassing is that? That I would have my degrees so like framed behind me while I just like talk about knitting. I'm like, see, I'm certified, not in knitting, but in something. Like, I paid a lot of money for those. So yeah, I hung them up in a place where y'all won't be able to see, but I'm looking at them like, who? I really did that. I really spent like, I'm not going to say the number. It's too much money. I'm so embarrassed for the United States higher education system. I'm embarrassed for them, but they charge us the money and I pay it. Anyways, so that might be a little bit different, have a little bit of different background. There's some things on this wall that should be hanging up, but I'm going to be showing you them later in this episode, which is very exciting. And also next thing that might be a little bit different is that I put my septum ring back in, which is right here. I have been having a lot of like self-realizations lately, and I feel like it's very unique for me to come into myself a little bit more in the summer because usually summer is not my season, but lately I've been kind of feeling like summer is hitting a little bit more lately. It's feeling like a new time. I'm feeling like a new me. This is probably also some of the like the vibes giving off from being a new graduate that I just feel like, ooh, yes, I'm new. I should do all the things, change the look a little bit. I have a middle part now, which I'm still not entirely sure I suit it, but I'm doing the thing. Trying to look like your slightly bitchy, cool, like art teacher here. Like this is the vibe I'm going for. And I had to stick the septum piercing back in, which is a funny story. I pierced it myself when I was like 17, 18 in my bedroom. I had just had mono, like the worst case of mono ever, which is extremely, I feel like, high school thing to have. I had to like block out my windows. That was also during the summer, by the way, which is maybe why summer gives me such bad vibes, because last summer I can really remember I had to black out my room. I was like locked in there with mono for like the whole summer. I had just had mono. I got over it. I was like, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to college. And I pierced my own septum with hollow needles that I ordered from Amazon. And fun fact, I like, if you do that, you might know that these home piercings don't always work the same as professional piercings. So what I mean by that for me is that this piercing never closed. I had it out for like 2 years consistently, and it just was always just kind of a hole in my septum. And so I was like, you know what, might as well just stick the jewelry back in because it's not closing anyways. And it feels a lot less weird to have something like plugging up that hole versus just having like another hole there. And now that I'm thinking about it too, I forgot that I also stretched my septum to like, I want to say like 8 gauge. So that's probably also why it doesn't shut anymore. So that's fun. Anyways, yay, irreparable damage that I've done to my body. Speaking of body modifications too, I also had pierced my philtrum in college. I didn't do it myself this time because I didn't trust myself to do a lip piercing because that's intense. But I do have like a lasting scar. You probably, maybe you could see it. I don't know. But anyways, that's my body modification story for now. I definitely want to get more like body modifications in the future. I've been still thinking about like more holes in my ears because I have my lobes, which in also very true Filipino child fashion, my mom had my earlobes pierced when I was like 6 months old, so they also never close. And I also did stretch those once upon a time, but they're back to normal now. So yeah, I've been thinking about getting my second lobes pierced. Like, see what I'm saying? Like, this summer is like bringing out something new in me again. I feel like I'm 27. Let's go pierce my ears again. So yeah. Despite all of the new good vibes I'm also having, it is so hot. And it's forcing me to fully be a summer knitting person. And this is the year officially, I'm going to say it now, that I'm officially cranking out all of my summer knits. And it's an exciting time to watch my knitting podcast right now. Because prior, this knit, which I'm wearing, which is my outline Raglan by Jessie May, was one of the first like summer knits I ever did. And my straps. Yeah, I love it. And it's very nice to wear indoors on a hot summer day. It does have some toothpaste stains on it, which I'm going to point out so nobody asks me about it. So I need to wash it. But yeah, I've been really thinking about summer knitting on a whole new level. I have a very exciting summer knit to show you all, which is also why I wanted to come back sooner. And apart from all the knitting stuff, like another new vibe for me lately has been, I'm really into like black iced coffee. So I got myself a little cup, which has also been so necessary because if you're watching this, it's probably not going to come out today, but probably the day after. The day before I filmed this was the 4th of July, which, like, hee-haw, yeah, cookouts, fireworks, no. Like, the only part of 4th of July that I like is cookouts, and it has nothing to do with 4th of July because it's a trash holiday. But there was fireworks, and it was awful. Like, our neighbors truly popped the fuck off. Like, so they always do fireworks, even when it's light outside and even when it's not the 4th of July. And so when it is the 4th of July, they go even harder. They're just like, yeah, let's like blow it, all the fireworks up. Yeah, I'm subsisting on this iced coffee. I usually like to put cream and sugar in it, but I've recently been getting into like really new, really nice coffees. So this is I'll show you again. This is a blue bottle coffee that I bought from Target. I've been really getting into like trying new fancy coffee brands, and this is one, and it is really good. I can tell the differences, I feel like. The reason why I'm subsisting on coffee is because I had to stay up until midnight last night with Spicy because the fireworks were just nonstop. They had to have started around like 7, 8 o'clock at night, even before it was dark outside. And they went straight until midnight. Like, it was constant fireworks. And the neighbors that we have nearby, for some reason, they really like to do these like, I don't even know what they're called, but they're essentially just fireworks that just make a noise and a really bright flash. And so it's literally just to have a big noise and a big flash of light. Like, it's not even like, I can kind of understand why people like certain other fireworks that are like, oh, look, it's a flower. Oh, look, it's this or whatever. It's the American flag. Hee-haw. But in this instance, it's literally just a bright flash of light. And they just do it, I think, to annoy people or because it's like, whoa, the whole neighborhood looks like it was daytime for a second. But it's horrible. It's the absolute worst thing ever. I think all fireworks kind of suck anyways. And like the same effect can be like, I don't know, achieved with like a light show or something, without all of the pollution and the noise and the horribleness and the making animals and people so horribly afraid and suffering. But yeah, so picture all these like big bomb-like things going off, and yeah, Spicy was not having a good time. And that was to be expected, but I also was having a bad time because I was like staying awake. I was just chilling with her. Luckily she did pretty okay. Like, she didn't freak herself out like too much with all the noises. Because the one thing I'm always afraid of with rabbits is that they can just like run and get startled and, you know, hurt themselves, very easily. And so I was really afraid that she would get startled and like run into the wall or something. Like, it was probably unlikely that that's something that would happen, but it always freaks me out. So luckily she stayed pretty calm because I was like laying with her and she was just kind of chilling, but like very much on high alert. And I could tell like her little heart was beating faster. But yeah, so we survived last night, and I also woke up at 5 a.m. this morning. So I haven't slept at all since then. So I've just been like, just get my coffee. Let's talk about knitting and all the things. So yeah, that has been my life today. But I also feel like, I don't know, like along with like the summer vibes and maybe the lack of sleep, I've also been having a very brave day today, which is also, I'm just like, I need to come and talk about this because I feel like other people might have very similar experiences, and a lot of my friends said the same things that they had related to this. But I was like, you know what, I need to come on here and just like broadcast it to the people because it's a very big realization for me, which is that I am very bad at doing the things that I really want to do. So what I mean by that, and this also relates to craft, but I'm definitely the type of person to have a lot of imposter syndrome, or to feel like I don't belong in certain spaces, or like, oh, this thing is just not for me, just because, like, I think there's a lot going on there internally. Like, I could probably unpack that all the way back to my childhood or whatever. But I think a certain dynamic to it, though, is just like that lack of confidence or that fear of failure that I think a lot of people, especially crafters, we can feel that sometimes, right? It's just like, oh, like there's this cool thing that people are doing, but like, oh, I couldn't do that. Or like, oh, it looks really hard, but oh, I might not be good at that, so why should I try? And I have found that also kind of creeping into my life. So like my working life, and that is not good. So basically what had happened was that, you know, once I graduated, I was feeling really rejuvenated and like really confident in my skills and abilities, and like really excited to also start this new chapter of my life to, you know, get my first job as a therapist and start accruing hours. You know, clinical hours is what therapists need to achieve their license, which is what I want to get, to be a licensed therapist. And I felt really confident with like all the summer vibes and everything that's been going on for me until it came down to actually tackling the job hunt. And I found myself really just like sliding into these like status quo, like what is expected of me as a recent graduate. Like I started applying to jobs that I knew weren't really fitting for me, but like, oh, I have the skill set for them. I could do this job, but it's just not really what I really want to be doing. / it is a stepping stone to get where I want to be, but it would essentially put me in a position where like the next 2 years of my life might be very high stress, very not good. I could see my work-life balance being not there, basically. But today like I said, I don't know if it was just lack of sleep or whatever, or maybe it was just me having to like sit down and be really honest with myself. But I realized like that's not what I want to do. And that's also not the steps I think I should have to take to be the therapist that I want to be. Which is a therapist who is serving my community members. So that is, serving other queer and BIPOC people, or also like trans people, because like that's the primarily community that I've been working with, is my fellow people I share identities with, and share community with. And that's like where my passion lies as well. And also I had just spent the like past year in my internship being able to be fully out and be fully myself. And it was really freeing. And I can't believe I was about to put myself back in that position of where I was prior to all of this, having to be in like the not best workplace environment. So this morning I took a really big step, and I just like, I just like emailed one of my past supervisors who runs a private practice in therapy that I really believe in the values and ethics behind, and is really doing the therapy that I really want to be doing. And who also, like, when we were supervised, when I was supervised by them, I really felt a lot of like kinship with them and their vision, and also like how they approach therapy. And so, yeah, I guess I wanted to share this today too, because it's like a really big step in development for me. But I think it's also a really good lesson to be learned, is, to listen to yourself and to like feel like it's okay to act on the desires, like if you really want something, it's nothing is going to be hurt by just trying. And I think that's where I found myself being really scared, because I was like, what if it doesn't work out, right? It's like that same thing with craft. It's like, what if I'm bad at it? And it's like, hey, nothing bad will happen to you if you are bad at something. Like, as long as you're not hurting anybody or further hurting yourself or putting yourself at unnecessary risk or others at unnecessary risk of harm or anything like that, like, you can do it. It's okay. And that's what I had to have that conversation with myself. I was like, you can do it. It's okay. And I think that is really just like fueling this commitment to myself this summer, and slash hopefully forever, and it's like something I think a lot about through crafting as well, is that craft and the work I do in knitting is also a commitment to myself. I make commitments to all these little garments of starting a project with the intention to finish them and to be able to wear them. And to create clothing for myself, but also it's kind of a commitment to my own mental health and my well-being, because it's so, a lot of people say this is very therapeutic. I find it very meditative and just like a big mindfulness practice for me in my life. And so I've been trying to extend that kindness and compassion for myself into other areas of my life. And so... Ooh, that was a big ramble. I think a good ramble, but little coffee break. But yeah, so like this morning was like a really big step, I think, in the way of that self-compassion. But other ways I've been having big steps in self-compassion is also been through exercise and through finding ways to move my body that really support my goals of being somebody who is strong, who can feel confident in my body's abilities to the extent that I do have them. And it's been really interesting because I find that, when I'm in the online space and, now that I have this little podcast, which is just like essentially just a space for me to just like talk and share everything that I'm thinking about, oftentimes I'll sit down here and I'll feel like, oh, I shouldn't talk about like diet and exercise. First of all, I'm not a professional. Second of all, I know how triggering it can be to people who have had past eating disorders, myself included. Also people who have had very complicated relationships to it. And also because diet culture and fat phobia and all these things are very much intertwined, unfortunately, with conversations around diet and exercise. So I've always been like, oh, I shouldn't talk about it. And if you don't want to hear about it, definitely feel free to skip this part. But I just wanted to talk briefly just about things that are happening in my life. And one thing has been that I've made a commitment, to exercising. And this is obviously can come in any form for anybody, but for me, I really like doing like workout videos. There's a very specific YouTuber that I like to watch. I specifically look for workouts that do not include any discussions of like weight loss or shrinking a part of a body or anything like that, because ew, gross. And the people that I do like their workout videos from are very good about that. And it's very much just about like self-care, strengthening your body, and, achieving goals of just like genuine wellness, which is really nice. And yeah, so I made a commitment to myself to try to do a full program by this YouTuber, which is, in this case, it's a month long, and there's rest days like in there as well. And it's been a really big shift, I think, for myself mentally, because I have led a very like sedentary life after high school in general, but especially after we moved out to California, it's a lot less walkable in our area of Southern California. And so I have been really, I've been working from home, doing school from home. I craft all the time. You can imagine there hasn't been a lot of movement happening. And it's really impacted my body and my health. And like earlier, in the spring, I had a little bit of a health scare. And a lot of those symptoms were definitely exacerbated by the fact that I was leading a like very sedentary life. And so, yeah, it's been really just a really nice development for me to find a routine of exercise that does not encourage me to get into like negative mindset about myself or about exercising, and has just been really healing, and I think supporting like a very great like supporting role in just all the things that I've been doing lately to take care of myself. And so yeah, that's really been another really big aspect of my life lately. And something else new. So aside from all the serious self-talk and all the self-growth that I've been doing, I have also been trying to find new hobbies, which has been very exciting. And one of which that I have gotten really into randomly is hiking and backpacking. And so definitely let me know if you are somebody who loves hiking, if you love backpacking, if you live on the West Coast, or honestly anywhere. Please let me know if you love it, because I really want to hear about like if you have any trail recommendations, or I don't know if anybody wants to come hiking with me. But I have just been getting really into it. I started like watching a ton of YouTube videos of all these like hiking YouTubers, and it got me really intrigued because I started learning about like what through hiking was. And like that's essentially, for people who don't know what through hiking is, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but essentially it's when you start at like one destination and you hike all the way through to another place. But in this case, with through hiking, it's typically like very long haul. So like a lot of these like through hikers are hiking really big trails like the Pacific Coast Trail or like the Appalachian Trail. Like they do the whole dang thing. And that's absolutely wild to me. I don't think I would ever have the, first of all, time to do it, because some of these people, they hike those for like 5 months straight, which is absolutely bonkers to me. I'm just like, how? And like there's like all these climate changes and everything. It's really wild. And it was just really intriguing to me. But then I realized that backpacking and hiking also comes with a lot of like gear. And like whenever there's an opportunity to like acquire gear or like to collect things like this towards like a hobby, I mean, you can already tell with like all my knitting and spinning stuff, like that is my thing. I don't know why, it just excites me to be able to have like gear for something and then to go do the thing and then to get to use it. It's really, I don't know, very specific. But yeah, I mean, like that combined with the aspect of like hiking and backpacking, which is very like nature centric, like going out to really beautiful areas and land here in the United States, really appeals to me. So I've been thinking a lot about hiking and backpacking lately, but it kind of seems like this is the wrong time for me to be thinking about it because it's currently summer and like 100 freaking degrees where I live. So this might have to be an update for a later podcast episode, maybe in the fall. But I fully intend to become a backpacker. So there's that, which is also why I've been trying to like exercise more. Cause I'm like, okay, I have this like really big physical goal of being able to like walk up mountains and crap. I can't, continue to have like back pain all the time. That is self-inflicted back pain because I don't move around. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, honestly, I think that's pretty much all that has been new with me, apart from just like vibing out. Oh, this is another thing, is that I had, obviously, like, I'm a really big James and Watts fan, and I'm not going to stop being a James and Watts fan, and I'm not going to stop talking about it, apparently, but I had watched his recent podcast episode where they were talking about perfumes, and that also piqued me to remember that I was previously, one of my big hobbies was perfume collecting. I've never been able to like collect full bottles of perfume because like I don't have that money to do that. But when I was in college and high school, I was specifically really into like indie perfumes. And so if you are also like that and you really love indie perfumes and specifically just like non-traditional perfume scents and things like that, definitely recommend the website Lucky Scent. I almost forgot what it's called. It's called luckyscent.com. I will link it down below. But that is where you can get a bunch of like samples. And I think they're free. I can't remember if I used to pay for those, but it's very cheap. You can get a bunch of tiny little samples of a lot of different like really unique indie brands of perfumes. And I recently, after James was talking about that on his podcast, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I used to be really into this. And so I went into my little stash of samples, and today I did put on a new perfume, or not a new perfume, but a perfume that I've had for a really long time. And I know y'all can't smell me, but like, I don't know, I do this all the time. Okay, this is also funny, is that I had a Zoom interview with an agency, and I literally put perfume on, and Aaron was like, oh my gosh, you look so great, you look so professional, oh, you smell good. And I was like, yeah, I put perfume on for my Zoom interview. And now I'm putting perfume on to film my knitting video podcast. But what was interesting about it is that I realized that this perfume smells differently on me than it used to. And if anybody else is a perfume head out there, tell me if this is possible. I'm wondering if it's because, like, I don't know, I've, like, leveled up as an adult. Maybe my hormones are different now, and, like, that's interacting, my pheromones. Is that a thing? I don't know. But, like, I put this perfume on today, and I was like, it smells poop. Like, it does not smell the way I used to think it smelled. So, anyways, that's my perfume tangent, and that's all I can think about right now as I'm filming this, is that, like, I smell icky. Because this perfume, I swear... it's called Moonlight, by Moonlight, I think it's called. I'll put it on the screen somewhere. It's by this, I guess, like, perfume house brand. I don't know what they're called by Killian, I think, or maybe it's just Killian. I don't know if they're very indie, but it was more unique to me than I had seen other perfumes. But the specific scent, I swear, when I used to put it on when I was in college, it used to smell faintly of, like, mango skins to me on my body, but now it smells like I don't know, like very floral in a bad way. You know what I mean? It's like a little bit funeral home in a bad way, a little bit like soap in a public bathroom. So if only we had smell-o-vision, am I right, y'all? You all could smell me smelling awful. So I think that's pretty much all I have to update y'all with. And I've been really intending to do these little updates more often. So I'm glad I got to do that today, because I'm like, finally I can get out all the things that I had top of mind, you know? Because typically when I film these episodes, I'm like, oh, I forgot everything I ever wanted to tell y'all on here or speak about. But today I remembered them all. So there is that. Yeah, so what I'm wearing, I guess I already told y'all, but This is my Outline Raglan by Jessie May. If you don't know it, I knit it last year in the summer, I think, or like maybe spring, summer. It's a very great transitional seasonal piece, I find, because it's like long sleeves, but it's also knit out of 100% cotton. I knit mine out of Purl Soho's Cotton Pure in the color Lemon Mint, which I absolutely love. I really want to get more of this yarn, I also want to try new cotton yarns, and I feel like Purl Soho is kind of like my crutch when it comes to yarn buying when I want to try something new, just because I'm like, oh, I have experience with this brand, and they have pretty good pricing, and like I can trust the quality. But I would be very curious to try like other brands of cotton yarns, specifically other plant fiber yarns, because I know they're out there. I just think I need to be a little bit more adventurous about it. But I really do love this yarn. And also what I'm wearing is another fun hands and curls necklace. And this one has like, it's color blocked, it's like yellow. And then there's like this really bright blue, a navy blue, and a pinky peach. And it has this really fun marled black and white bead on it, which is all knitted, which is really fun. I think this is a very fun, colorful outfit, which I'm loving lately. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing. And I'm hoping soon I can be wearing a lot more summer knitting, because I have one on my needles right now that I'm very, very excited about. So we'll start with the whips. I have my first work in progress with me, which is essentially why I started filming this episode today in general, is because I've been really working on it, and I'm like, I want to talk about it because I have so many thoughts, so many thoughts. So this is the beautiful, the lovely, the iconic Dappled Lace Raglan by none other than James & Watts. It's very blown out. It looks a lot more white / blue in my camera, I'm finding. I don't know if this helps at all. No, none of that's helping. But it is a very faint minty green, I would say. So this is knit in, once again, Purl Soho. Y'all know me, I'm a Purl Soho fanboy. Purl Soho Cattail silk in the colorway Willow Tea. And yeah, I would definitely say it does give like tea vibes. Like very pale green tea. Yeah, I wish the color translated more. Either way, I find it really beautiful, obviously, just because the stitch pattern is stunning. So lovely. I'll bring it closer so you can get a look at the lace. But yeah, the lace pattern is very simple to knit. I'm really loving working on this. I'm going to be knitting this full length sleeves and full length body. I'm knitting the 3rd size, I believe. And I'm really excited about this, but here is a very interesting thing about this, is that, did you know I almost frogged this, but I didn't. And so that may come as a surprise for those of y'all who know me / have been watching this podcast for a while, is that I love to frog. I have no shame in frogging. I, in fact, embrace frogging. I think everybody should frog from time to time. I just happen to do it a lot because I am very prone to mistake making in my knitting, not intentionally or anything. And I think I try to knit pretty mindfully and be aware of these things, but it just happens for me. I just lose my place in the pattern or something, and something goes haywire. And for me, instead of like placing a lifeline and like whatever, I like to just restart it, because oftentimes I feel like things turn out better for me on my second go around anyways. Like once I've actually like knit through the pattern, now I understand it a lot more, and I'm just like, oh, I'll just rip it back and go again. And that also like prolongs the pattern's like time on my needles, which sometimes is fun, which is why like for this one, I was like, oh, I really love knitting this. So if I have to rip it back, I might as well just frog it all and just get to do it again. And the reason why I almost frogged this and restarted was because I got something went wrong when I was doing the Raglan increases. I ended up, when I split for the body, I ended up with like 9 extra stitches. And I have no clue how they got there because I swore I was following the pattern to a T. I even printed out the pattern on paper, just like the one page I was working on the Raglan increases on, so that I could for sure like have all my attention, mark it with pen, make sure I was doing everything right. And I still ended up with like 9 extra stitches. And so obviously with like a lace pattern, like a stitch pattern like this, you don't really want to get off stitches because it can affect the way the lace pattern looks. It can make things look a little wonky. Things aren't going to line up correctly. And so I was like, oh man, dang it, I have to frog this because there's no way, like, I didn't really want to have to go back. I had no clue where I made the mistake in the Raglans, you know, and placing a lifeline. Maybe some of y'all pro knitters out there know how to do it better, but I think placing a lifeline in lace seems very tricky for me. And something I just didn't really want to fiddle with. It's just easier for me to be like, frog it time. I do this all the time. I just frog it. But then I had a stroke of genius. So the side it was on, so like the whole back panel of it was correct. Like everything was right, good to go. But then the front panel was like where the mistake was, where the extra 9 stitches were. And I thought for like a split second that like my lace pattern wasn't like lining up right. And I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll find out once it blocks out, but I'm looking at it now. It would have been like in this region. I don't think that these stitches ever got like off count. And where this extra stitches were under the arm. So I was like, perfect. Here's what I'm going to do. So what I did is I just like placed a marker before those last 9 stitches that were just like extra stitches, random stitches. And what I ended up doing was just that every time I got to that point, I would just knit 2 together until I had no more stitches. I just had like 1 left and I just knit that 2 together with the last stitch of the lace pattern. And I was so proud of myself because I didn't frog, and I actually found a solution to fixing this beautiful knit so I can continue on with my progress. And the mistake that I made is just like now hidden in this little armpit area, which you can't even tell because it's lace. Once again, it's so forgiving when you make a oopsie like that, because it's just like, okay, like it's in here somewhere. You really can't tell. So yeah, that was my proud knitting moment of today, of lately. I was just like, oh wow, me who loves to frog so much didn't have to do it. So yeah, I'm chugging along on this and I'm really excited and really glad that everything is looking beautiful. I keep holding up to like this like on me because I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to wear it. And this is definitely one of those patterns too where I'm just like, oh, I want to knit another one. And that leads me to talk a little bit about this yarn that I'm using. So like I mentioned, it's Purl Soho's Cattail Silk. And I'm just gonna hold it up so you can see some of the quality of it. So it's 100% mulberry silk. And if you can also see like the strand of yarn here, you can see it has like little neps / a little bit of slubbiness. I don't know if it's quite slubs, but a little bit of texture there, right? It's a little bit of bumping happening. And that is, I think it is intentional in the spinning process for this yarn. And it was something that I was unsure of how it would look in a lace pattern like this / how it would feel, because it's a 100% silk yarn. And this is my first time ever knitting with anything like that. This was on sale, which is also why I got it. And I was like, whew, good thing it was on sale because it's pretty pricey, as you can imagine. And I have to say too, when I got it, I was a little bit like disappointed. Like, I don't know what I really expected raw silk or silk yarn to feel like. I thought maybe perhaps it'd be a little bit more like silky, like silky smooth, like when you imagine it. But I guess this specific silk is not really like that. It's not really like super soft. But as I knit it up, it feels really nice. Like the fabric it creates starts being really lovely. but it does feel a little bit like rougher, and definitely with like the bumpiness of the yarn too, that also gives the feeling of like a little bit of a rough hand feel, I would say. So that's just something to keep in mind. I would say if you've never knit with silk before, you might be surprised at how it feels. But I will say, as I got used to it, it feels a lot softer, like as I touch it continuously. I guess it was just very shocking because if you're somebody like me, I mostly knit with like 100% wool. And so when you touch most wools, like sure, there could be some that have like a prickle factor, but I still find all of them like very soft generally. But yeah, this one just definitely has a little bit of a different quality to it. And so it's been a very interesting and fun endeavor as I delve into plant fibers because I'm very unfamiliar with them, and it's very fun to try something new. So definitely let me know if you have a favorite plant fiber yarn that you'd like to recommend. I would love to know because I really need to get out of my depths a little bit, try something other than just like a Purl Soho yarn. I'd love to try some other indie brands or anything like that. So yeah, let me know. But yeah, this is my beautiful dappled lace raglan. I can't wait to finish this one and make another one in another color. Before I get to my next whip, we're gonna take a coffee break. Sorry if that was annoying. Whew. I have been talking up a storm and my throat is definitely feeling it. That is definitely something I'm nervous about when I start being a therapist again, because I'm going to be talking a lot, and I think my throat is not used to it anymore. Okay. Itch. So, for my next whip, it is almost an FO. It's so close, which is very exciting, because this is my White Mountains sweater for my partner, Erin. And so I will go ahead and show y'all how it's looking. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. This is such not a summer knit. As you can see, it's a full length, full long sleeves, worsted weight, 100% wool sweater. Oh my gosh, his arms are so long. I can't even hold it all in frame. But I am in love. This is such a basic design, but I find that even just, I don't know, compared to other Raglans, I really love the placement and how these the Raglan looks on this design. I cannot say it enough, but with Midori Hirose, her patterns are just like impeccably written. And I know other people have said it before, but I will continue to say it again. If you have not knit any of her patterns, I highly, highly recommend. There's a lot of fine details in the finishing of her patterns that always just like are like, yes, like why don't I do that on every one of my patterns, or does it like every one of my sweaters? And one of those things is that there is a technique that she uses to close the little gaps that you get in the armpit. And I really don't know if you can see it, but like there is not a hole in my armpit joint. I mean, there's a little bit of a hole there, but it's a lot smaller than it usually is. Typically when I join sleeves, like you can see here, I just have like a lot of holes happening. It's just always kind of been one of my things that always happens. But on the neckline and also on the armpit, when you're joining the sleeves, so you're picking up all the stitches around the sleeves, when you go ahead to join in the round, you pass the last stitch that was like there, pass the last stitch that was on over the first stitch and like slip it off, like a cast off almost. This is not a really great description, but what it does is it tightens it up just a little bit. So like the pattern is written to like cast on one extra stitch at the bottom here so that you can just like do that little like boop and tighten everything up over there, and it works wonderfully. So yeah, this is making me so hot just touching it. Oh my goodness, but I'm almost done. I just have the bottom ribbing to happen, just like another inch or so, and then the sweater curse is over, baby. It's over. It's done. It's gone. Because this is a lovely sweater. It fits me wonderfully. He has tried it on once before sleeves, and it fits really well. So yay, I'm so happy for this, and it's gonna be a while till he gets to wear it, but it's gonna be an iconic moment when he does. I'm gonna be so excited. But yeah, I really love this project. I love this yarn. I want to knit with it for myself. It's just been really wonderful. And this is another example of why frogging can be worth it, because I did have to frog the yoke on this before, and I'm really glad I did. So the next thing I have to talk about is a little bit random. It is very much knitting related, but I wanted to share it on here because I feel like it's a really fun craft, and that is turning my little gauge swatches into little hanging hoops that also hang on my wall as wall art. So where you see those little like dots there, that's where they hang. So little like framed cuties. So this was spurred on by my friend Rachel, who's one of my dear friends that I met while I was in college. We used to work at the same jewelry store together. It was great. It was great to work with her. That jewelry store was a hot mess. If you're my close friend, we can talk about it, but I'm not going to broadcast that onto the internet because it was a time. And I am not about to air all of that dirty laundry to the world. But so Rachel, I had showed Rachel that this cute little swatch I knit. So this is obviously for my Dappled lace Raglan. It's a wonderful lace swatch. I mentioned to her, I was like, oh, I don't really want to unravel it and reuse the yarn because it's just so beautiful. I love the stitch pattern so much. And Rachel was like, oh, something I've always done as a little gift for people is just knit a lace swatch and frame it in a little hoop, in a little embroidery hoop. And luckily for me, I had a bunch of these little embroidery hoops because I initially bought embroidery hoops for quilting because I know a lot of people will stretch a certain section of their quilt over a hoop to do their hand quilting or whatever on, or even adding embroidery, as they're intended. But I really don't like doing that anyways. And so I had all these little hoops and I was like, what am I going to do with them? And yeah, so this was great. And so it's a permanent place for these swatches to live. This is a swatch in Nutiden, and for the, the Cotton Grass Jumper by the Petite Knitter. It was a swatch I did. I just figured I didn't really want to frog this Nutiden anyways, because I also cut the swatch. I swatch in the round, I just cut it back there. So I was like, oh, might as well frame it. The backs of these are kind of ugly, but whatever. They hang on the wall. So if you have a swatch or swatches that you don't really want to unravel, or if you swatch in the round like me and you just cut it to get an accurate swatch, you can frame them and then you could have a use for them. So I definitely want to do this more with all my future projects. So definitely keep an eye out because I feel like it would be really cute to have a whole bunch of these around in my office or my living space, to have a little bit of knitting art in my life all the time. So yeah, these are them. And so that leads into the spinning segment of my knitting podcast, which I feel like is now a permanent thing that will always happen every episode. And this is something I cannot believe I didn't mention until now, but I am doing my very first Tour de Fleece. So as I'm filming this, it's July. And for those of you who are in the knitting online space, crafting space in general, or maybe even in person, I know a lot of people have spinning guilds in different places. You may have heard of Tour de Fleece, which is an annual event that happens throughout the month of July where a bunch of spinners essentially come together. Some of them form teams essentially, and we all just spin our little hearts out. I don't really know too much about the history of Tour de Fleece because I only started really hearing about it once I joined in knitting Instagram and people would mention it during July. But I think people join teams and compete against each other just to see who spun more, maybe the amounts. I don't really know. But I always saw it as an opportunity just to see how much you can spin, or just spin along with other people and just have a really great community event. I just never knew how to do it before because like in past years I had heard about these teams. I've heard about like spinning guilds and XYZ, and I was like, I don't know what this is. I'm kind of shy to ask people because I don't want to seem like I don't know, which is dumb. Like, you should be able to like not know things. It's okay. I'm saying this mostly to myself. Like, you can not know things. It's okay to not know things. But luckily, I really pushed myself in like earlier years, especially I think like 2021. I really pushed myself to like have friends on in general, but get more involved in the knitting community and like make connections with people. And so I have I'm in like a little knitting, I'm in a lot of knitting discords and things like that, and talking with people in DMs, trying to go out of my way to like, connect with people through craft. And I had talked to some of my friends about it. They were like, hey, is anybody doing Tour de Fleece? And I was like, I don't know how. And they were like, this is how. So I ended up getting invited and joined M to the third, Mackenzie, here on YouTube, also on Instagram is M to the third. Love her knitting podcast. But I ended up joining Mackenzie's Discord, and Mackenzie has a team called the Spinderellas, which is very fun, for Tour de Fleece. And I was like, why the heck not? So a couple of my other friends also joined the team, and I was like, this is fun. So it's been really great to like share in that Discord, and like everybody's really active there and just like talk about spinning. It's really cool to see other people's projects. And so I have been loving Tour de Fleece this year. I kind of want to do it every year. But it has been really pushing me to finish some spins. And so, as y'all know, I have talked about quite extensively on here, is that one of my biggest goals with spinning is to have a sweater's quantity of yarn. And I have 2 pounds of wool in my closet that are desperately asking me to make a sweater's quantity of yarn with them. I've always just felt really intimidated because I'm a 100% spindle spinner, and spinning at high quantities takes a long time. It can be pretty fatiguing. I feel like it gets kind of boring, especially because the wool that I want to use for a sweater is like all white and it's undyed. And so I'm like, this is going to be a slog to spin through. But I really want to get to that point where I can spin higher quantities. And I don't think that has to just be reserved to spinning wheel spinners. I definitely think there's okay, here's my thoughts. There are like accessibility reasons why spinning wheels might be better for people who want to spin for extended amounts of time, right? Because when you're spinning with like a spindle, oftentimes you're having to hold your arm up like this for long periods of time. Some people might not be able to do that. There's a lot more of like finger dexterity, I feel like, that's called upon for spindle spinning, when you have to like spin a little thing and also draft and do all these things and wind the yarn and blah, 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 blah. There's a lot happening in these little muscles that we use for knitting that people might not want to also take on through spinning spindles. And so wheel spinning is really great because then you can involve your legs, if that's maybe a stronger part of your body for you or whatever. And you can spin, I feel like, I don't have experience, but I feel like spinning at a wheel for longer stretches of time is easier than on the body, perhaps, than it might be through a spindle. I don't really know, but that's just kind of how I think, especially because a spinning wheel is more of a machine. It's doing a little bit more work for you, even though you are powering it by treadle and things like that. But I don't know. If I'm wrong about that, you can let me know in the comments. But that's kind of my thoughts. Why did I even get on that tangent? So yeah, there's like reasons why spinning large quantities of yarn on spindles is not always ideal for everybody, but something I want to take on. And so, as a way to accustom myself to spinning high quantities of yarn, I took on Tour de Fleece as an experiment, and also like, I don't know, maybe just a way to tell myself, like, you can freaking do this, you amazing person. Like, you can spin high quantities of yarn. So I have been using this opportunity to spin through all my stash wool, my stash fiber that I have mentioned here before, that I really wanted to work my way through before I fully get my hands on those sweater quantities of wool that I want to spin. And so very excitingly, my first day 1 and day 2 spins, finished out this whole lot of Nest Fibers BFL. This is in the colorway Cabin Fever, which I've shared on here before. And this is, as I mentioned last episode, this was my very first ever chain ply yarn. It worked out to be, I feel like this is like a heavy worsted or errand weight yarn. Oh my god, this is cute. Look at me and my yarns. And I love it. It's so fluffy. It's so bouncy. It's so squishy. It's so cute. And it's so fun because it's also like a colorway that I would have normally never used. But it's really like, once again, having all the summer vibes. I really wanted to get into the blues. And I feel like, I don't know if this is just because the name of the yarn was Cabin Fever. When I would spin it, I was like, oh, I can see the color story in these colors. Like there's like the warm browns and golds of like the hearth of the cabin. And then there's like surrounded by the cold and frosty tones of the winter outside. So I was like having a whole ass story time in my brain spinning this. It was so visual for me with this colorway. I don't know why. And so, yeah, it was lovely. And so I finished 75 grams of this for Tour de Fleece. I believe it was these two skeins that was finished on day 1 and day 2 of Tour de Fleece. And the ply on the fly chain plying method that I've been doing on my spindle that I can't really explain very well, so just watch YouTube videos about it, has been allowing me to have like finished yarns at the ends of these days, and they dry really quickly because it's pretty like small amounts, and it's also hot as frick, a literal oven outside. So I've been hanging these all on our little pull-up bar in our backyard, and they've been drying in like instants, like in an instant. And oh my gosh, the other day when I was drying this, it literally, when I brought it back inside, it felt like it was just in the dryer. You know, like that warm blanket feeling was happening with this yarn. And I literally just like held it to my face. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is everything to me. So yes, I have been loving this spin. So glad to have finished all of this. My friend Natasha sent me 2 bags of this colorway, which I believe is 8 ounces. I think the braids from Nest Fiber Club are 4 ounces. I'll have to look it up. Maybe I'll put it on here. I'm not quite sure. So I think this is 8 ounces of fiber. I'll have to take the full yardage of this at a later date. But, I mean, it's a good amount. So I'm excited maybe make a little shawlette with this. Oop, dropped one. But yeah, who knows. But yeah, this is my first spin of Tour de Fleece, all finished. And so on day, I think it was day 3 that I started this spin. This is a very exciting one. So if you may remember when I went on my yarn extravaganza in Illinois when I visited my family and I went to the local yarn store, The Fold in Marengo, Illinois, I picked up this beautiful braid of 75% BFL and 25% Tussah silk. That is just so gorgeous. I have to show y'all again. Look at how beautiful. This is about half of the braid right here because I've already prepped it for spinning, which I'm holding here. But you can just like see how gorgeous, how beautiful. I did not know what to expect with this. I've never spun Tussah silk before, or Tussah in general. And this is by I think it's like an indie dyeing company called Blue Moon Fiber Arts, which I'd never heard of before, but I've Googled since, and I believe they're based out of Oregon. So gorgeous, these colors. So gorgeous. I still can't believe it. But also the quality of the fiber is really lovely. I already knew I love spinning BFL, like it's my BFF in spinning, BFL. And the mix with the Tussah was like making me nervous. I was like, oh, I don't know about this one. I've never spun this before. Hoo. But it works so beautifully. It's so lovely. It's a dream to draft. I feel like I can draft very fine with it because the staple length is just like ungodly long. It's just like gorgeous. Like gorgeous. It's just like spilling from here. Just like, ooh, so easy. Yeah, it's been lovely. And so, drop that to the side. I have been working my little spindle. And I've already finished a full little cup on here. So you can see currently I've started the next bit of spinning, have my temporary cup built up on there. You can see the tininess of my little spindle. It's so weird to see it naked, and it's so beautiful. I'm obsessed with the spindle. So you can see here the prepped fiber that I have. So to explain a little bit for those of y'all who might not know, so this is the braid is a roving. And so typically, especially when I bought this, it was definitely more compressed. But so that just basically means like, the fibers were all like bunched together because it'd probably been sitting in that store for a really long time. What I did with this is like, this is about half of the 8-ounce braid that I had. I just ripped it in two. And then I will go ahead and split this in half lengthways all the way down and then fluff it so that eventually I get a strip like this, which is like very fluffed out. And this is like about half of the 8-ounce braid. So it's about like 2 ounces or so, which is much more manageable to work from. So there's that in case you're ever like struggling when you're a spindle spinner to like know how to prepare your fiber. I definitely used to not really know. So there's that for you. And so here is my first finished skein of yarn from that braid. Oh my goodness, she's so beautiful. Don't even look at my face because you just need to look at her. What should we name this yarn? I feel like I want to name her. Like, she's beautiful. I feel like, should I start naming all my handspun yarns? Is that really cute or not? I don't know. Maybe I will just internally name them and I'll tell y'all later if you want to know. But gorgeous. I don't know what her name should be. Gorgiana. Beautiful. I love her. This is, so I aimed to go for a 3-ply. So this is a chain ply once again, still honing my skills with the chain ply game. I love ply on the fly just because I love not having to like ply after spinning all the singles. Like that's a game changer. I love it. And I wanted to go for a fingering weight to a sport weight. So I'll have to compare it to some of my other yarns, but I think it's more of a DK. This is fully washed and finished, and like, I did my little snappy do thing. It definitely fluffed up a lot more, and there's definitely like strands in here, which I'm like, this, like, she's DK. She's DK over there. But then like here, it's like, okay, like she's kind of a fingering moment, but kind of sporty. So yeah, I think it's gonna probably all end up being more of a DK, but I'm not complaining about that. I love a good DK yarn, and there's a lot of great patterns in DK yarns. So yeah, I'm just gonna continue holding it up here because I'm just obsessed. I can't stop. I just love the way the color placement is working out. These like emerald greeny, beautiful, and she's just so regal. I'm getting so hot. And it's not just because of this yarn, y'all. It's just freaking hot in here. So let me drink some coffee and probably end this episode. Holy crow. Okay, I should probably also drink water. What is wrong with me? Okay. Well, that was pretty much all I have to talk to y'all about today. Thank you so much for joining me here. I'm sweating my butt off, and I promptly need to get out of this room. So I just really had fun today chatting with y'all. And so I will see you all next time. I keep saying this. I keep wanting to do a video that's not a knitting podcast on this channel to bring you behind the scenes on my life, like crafting life, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm there yet still. But anyway, I will continue to come and chat with y'all all about my upcoming summer knitting, and also, hint, hint, exciting plans, because soon I'm going to have to start knitting my sweater for Rhinebeck. So that's going to be really fun to tell you all about. And hopefully next time you see me, possibly, Tour de Fleece might be over, and you can see the full finished amount of this yarn, which could also be very hype. So thank you all for hanging out with me. I had a great time. I hope you did too. And stay cool out there, kids. I don't know what else to say. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.